Hey guys, and welcome to my weekly reading vlog. For those of you who have not seen one of these, welcome, first of all. But second of all, I just kind of wanted to let you know that I do my reading vlogs a little bit differently in that I jump onto the camera every single time that I finish a book during the week and give you my initial reactions and thoughts about that book. And then at the end of the week, I shove all the clips together and then I post it up. And that's what the reading vlog is. So with that explanation out of the way, let's jump right in. For anybody who cares, it is Tuesday afternoon. And I have decided that I am going to DNF Flunked by Jen Calonita. This, I shouldn't have read. That's just, it boils down to, this is a middle grade book. In my last reading vlog, I did try to make it very clear that this is a middle grade book. I don't do middle grade usually. And it's a middle grade book. I don't generally like middle grade. And it was very much a middle grade book. Like, I'm not gonna, every problem that I had with this book, it was written that way because it's a middle grade book. It makes sense for the genre that it's in. And I'm not gonna sit here and like say terrible things about this book because it didn't meet, like, it wasn't what I wanted when it wasn't realistic for me to want those things from this book anyway. So I'm just going to go ahead and DNF it. I made it to page 96 before I realized, I just I wasn't enjoying it enough to continue to put time into it. So DNF'd that one. The next book we're going to talk about is Clockwork Heart by Pagliasotti. And I have actually decided that I am just not going to read this book. So, it was on, the only reason I'm bringing it up at all is because it was on my TBR. And I didn't want it to be that I had it on the TBR and then I just never mentioned it again. And so this is me mentioning it. I am just not going to finish this book. And I came to this realization because, so I gave you guys my TBR at the beginning of the month, and then I actually put the books in order of what I'm going to read when. And then I just kind of go through the books in that order. And so with this, I was getting closer and I was just filling with more and more dread as I got closer until just now when I decided to DNF this book Flunked, and then I went to go pick this up and I was just like, oh, I just don't want to read that. And then I read the first, and then like, here's the problem, is that I decided I was into a steampunk phase multiple years ago, and everybody was just like, oh, you have to read this book. It is so good. It's like, if you're into steampunk at all, you should read it. And then I went and read the description, and I was just like, it doesn't sound that interesting to me, so I don't really know what to do with this. But I decided to give it a try anyway. But the problem is, for me, that often doesn't work. It doesn't work out. And so I should probably have never gotten this book. But I did, and then I was just like, oh, I'll give it a chance anyway. But there was just nothing about this book that was calling to me. And in all transparency, I did read the first 3 or 4 pages just in case I maybe changed my mind, like it sucks me in and I just wanted to read it anyway. But that's not what happened, so I decided I'm just not going to read it. I'm not even going to count it as a DNF because I only read 3 or 4 pages, and that's just not really enough. So instead, I am going to pick up The Wicked and the Divine by Kieron Gillen. This is volume 5, the Imperial Phase Part 1. And then I also, for after that, I have volume 6, Imperial Phase Part 2. And so this is, from the description, every 90 years, 12 gods return as young people. They are loved, they are hated. In 2 years, they are all dead. It's happening now. It's happening again. And it's a gigantic soap opera with gods, and I am so excited. And so, okay, sorry. And so I'm really excited to get into this. At the end of volume 4, we have this big, massive, plot point that kind of changes things. And I am just so excited to get into it and to see how it's going to go. And so Since I am so excited, you might be hearing from me very shortly. But until then, well, bye. Hey guys, it is Friday morning and I have an update for you. And I finished The Wicked and the Divine volumes 5 and 6. No, I actually finished these not last night, but the night before. It's been a little bit difficult to find filming time this week, but in any case, I'm actually really glad that I didn't jump on the camera immediately because everything was I was so confused. I had to kind of work through what happened in both these volumes. It's a soap opera, right? Like, I keep describing it that way, and yet I'm so surprised when it's a soap opera. Like, I don't know. I'm just silly. But so at the end of the fourth volume, we have this big like turning point for the series, and that was totally fine. But I was like curious as to where we're going, and so volume 5, we were really dealing with how are we going to move forward from this event and dealing with it and kind of setting up the new norms. And then in volume 6, kind of all hell breaks loose again, because of course it does again, right? And at the end, we're left with the big cliffhanger twist that left me just saying, what? Because of course it's a soap opera. That stuff is going to happen. It's not exactly like I just woke up from a coma or, whatever. But like, it is definitely soap opera. So, I still really, really like it. I found these 2 volumes much easier to read because we went back to having the same artist for every single issue, so I was able to follow the drawings a lot better. I really am enjoying this series. It's not my usual fare, and that's okay. I'm still really enjoying it. But since I did finish it like a day and a half ago, I have already started my next book, and that is Rivals in the City by Y.S. Lee, the 4th and final book in the Agency series, which starts with A Spy in the House. Now, this series is actually really cool. It is set in Victorian era London, or 1860. I don't know if that's Victorian, but it's following our main character of Mary Quinn, who has been trained to be a spy because women are often overlooked and underestimated, and that makes them the perfect spies. Now, in this book, I can't tell you a ton about the plot without spoiling the first one, but it's the 4th and final book. We're wrapping up a bunch of these kind of loose threads so that maybe Mary Quinn can have some form of a happily ever after. I am actually reading it as an ebook that I got from the library. And I am 30% of the way done, and I am enjoying it. It is not quite as a strong beginning as we have had in other books, but I am enjoying it. And I'm expecting that I will be done with it fairly soon, hopefully by tomorrow night, but you're going to hear from me tomorrow night regardless. So until then, you guys, bye. Hey guys, it is Saturday night, so it is time for my end of the week update clip, and I am pleased to report that I have finished Rivals in the City by Y.S. Lee, the 4th and final book in the Agency series. Now, I have loved this series. It was a bit of a surprise for me because, I read the premise about this female spy in Victorian-esque times, and I thought, oh, I don't know, that might be a train wreck. And then I read it and I was just like, oh no, I love this. This is awesome. And it was written so well, and it was like, it was just a lot of fun, and the writing was done well. Everything was just kind of done well, and that was how the first 3 books were. And unfortunately, this last book was not quite as good, and the mystery itself was a little bit heavy-handed. The explanations that we were getting in the beginning to kind of, get everybody to the same page, like all the background information from the first 3 books, it was very clunky and just like, again, heavy-handed. The evil speech of evil from our villain was, again, just so heavy-handed. The writing itself did not flow quite as smoothly, and honestly, in the end, everything wrapped up just a little bit too tidily. So which is not exactly what I was expecting. Did I still enjoy it? Absolutely I did. It was still a good book, but it just wasn't as good as the rest of this series was, and it wasn't what I was expecting based off of the first 3 books. So I ended up giving it a 3.75 stars, but I was expecting to kind of give it 4.25 or higher. So a little bit disappointed that it wasn't as good as I had hoped, but it was still very much an enjoyable read. And even with as tidily as it kind of wrapped up at the end, it felt more like the closing of a chapter rather than the closing of a book. So if Y.S. Lee ever decides to write in this series again, it will not feel out of place, which I think is kind of nice. And I am hopeful that there will be a 5th book and maybe the quality will go back up. But anyway, so yes, I read it. It was good, just not as good as I was hoping. The next book that I want to talk about is The Diamond Secret by Suzanne Weyn. This is one of the books in the Once Upon a Time series. The Once Upon a Time series is just a bunch of retellings of various fairy tales and stories from a variety of authors. This particular volume is a retelling of Anastasia, or a take on Anastasia, and I decided that I am just not going to read it. The Once Upon a Time series tends to be really, really hit or miss. I have read exactly 2 of them that I thought were really well done, and the rest were okay to mediocre. And honestly, I'm just not that interested in Anastasia. I have never been. We're back to, I don't know why I picked this up. But it was on my TBR, so I wanted to mention what my decision was in regards to this book, so that it didn't just like, I mention it and then never mention it again. So I wanted to at least let you guys know that I'm just not going to read it. Instead, I am going to read Intertwined by Gena Showalter. Now the premise of this starts out really interesting and then kind of goes off the deep end. Let me explain. So our main character has 4 souls living within him, and they each have these separate powers, like being able to tell when or how somebody's going to die, something like that. Kind of like supernatural powers. And it's all good until at one point they can take over his body and he wakes up and he doesn't remember exactly what happens, or like it's starting to bleed a little bit more into his regular life, so he's not loving that. And then he meets a girl, because of course he does. And she quiets the souls inside of him, because of course she does. And so he's drawn to her, even though he knows he probably shouldn't be. And that sounds very interesting to me. And then you enter in apparently a werewolf who's really into her, and a vampire princess who really wants him. I don't know, it could be a complete train wreck. It sounds like it might be a complete train wreck, but it might be a fantastically enjoyable train wreck, and so I'm going to give it a try anyway. We'll see how it goes. The only other thing that I wanted to mention is give you an update on The Secret Diary of Lizzie Bennet by Bernie Sue and Kate Rorick. This is a companion novel to the Lizzie Bennet Diaries series here on YouTube. I'm on page 166 of the book and video 61 out of 160. So I am slowly making my way through them. I am still enjoying them. I am right at the part where everything is super tense and I'm not loving that part, but I am still continuing on and it is still enjoyable. So I will continue to update you guys, but I would not expect to finish this for another couple of weeks. And that is it, you guys. Those are all the things that I have read, decided to not read. I'm in the middle of everything. But that's it. So I will see you guys in the next video, and until then, have happy reading. Bye.